Hello, my name is Bill Haley, and this is Haley 2024, The Movement's Gun Reform Ideas. So this one's going to be on the structure of the violent crime mitigation system. So you need to know the full system that I go to, how I separate representation, how I separate powers, how I do a lot of the structure of the Haley 2024 reforms. So we go very far into the free enterprise system with police, the courts, and the prisons. Let's get right into it. Okay. First you have to understand the full CRA structure. CRA stands for Competitive Regulatory Agencies. These are competing governance agencies and competing representative agencies. So if this is the first video you have watched or listened to, if you're on iTunes, then you need to understand some of the more basics. So let's go over it real quick. We separate all government power into 30 sectors. This shows a little bit of the hierarchy. This shows you 3 of the sectors, and then the other one on here shows 27 different sectors as a representation. So you see a little bit of the hierarchy. So we do have a hierarchy in here. Here are the 30 sectors. You can't see them very good on the screen right here, so let's go to this screen. So you have 5 in the charity system, because we go 100% away from the welfare system. No more government welfare. Go to a full charity system, federal, state, and local. Foreign protection system, again, we take a lot away from the current government. We go and we separate the powers from the commander-in-chief to the foreign diplomats, to the military corporations, to military capability system, which is a funding mechanism, and military authorization, which is a checks and balance system. The one we're dealing with today is a violent crime mitigation system. The definition of violent crime, law enforcement authorization, the court system, and the prison system. So we have 15 others. We're not going to get into that on this video. I have other videos for that. And you can look at everything on my website. You see my website here on the screen, haley2024.org. So within each sector, we separate them all out. We're going to have full governmental systems within each one of these circles you see here. You see the competitive regulatory agency, where everybody picks the regulatory agency they want to regulate them. Very unique concept, but each regulatory agencies are a full governmental system with executive, legislative, and judicial powers. You do have a representative body when things need to go at the representative level. Very small number of things, but some things do. And that is a representative system. That's a full governmental system also, executive, legislative, and judicial system. On the other side of the screen, you see the rating system. That's to give high quality information. If we're not going to have a one standard for everybody, we want everybody to be able to be regulated by the regulatory agency they want to be regulated by. Then on the other side, you need to have high quality information. And the rating floors from the rating system is going to be a way to have a lot more stuff stay at the CRA level, the smaller individual units level, than go up to the representative level. If this is the first one, you really need to go and look at the CRA structure to realize everything we're doing with that. This cannot get in too far into that because we're going to stay strictly with the violent crime mitigation, but it's important to know the structure here because we're going to go over the 12 different competitive regulatory agencies within each one of these systems. So you see that CRAs and RAs, competitive regulatory agencies, on one side, they regulate, they govern, they send representatives up. Rating agencies, they give high quality information from a lot of different perspectives. If there's 12 different rating agencies per sector, they're going to be able to give us different perspective from the other rating agencies. One's going to be more liberal, one's going to be more conservative, one's going to be more libertarian. There'll be other ones that arrive and that will gain support from the citizens. But this one shows that members, people become members of RA, then the members elect the leadership of the RAs. Okay, very important screen here. Listen to every word here. No one person can serve in a position of an official authority in more than one sector. There's 30 sectors. You cannot serve at the federal, more than the federal, state, or local. You have to pick one of the 3. You have to serve one of the branches. Every one of these has a branch: executive, legislative, and judicial. You have to be on the CRA side or the rating system side. You can't be on both, official authority. And then once you're on the CRA, you can be the base unit, the CRA. The sector board, the representative one, or the parent sector board, which is mainly organizational and setting the boundaries of the 30 sectors and making sure they do not overlap. On the rating system, you have the basic unit, the RA, the rating agency, the rating system per sector, and then the parent sector board, again, organizational purposes. So, there's a full distinct CRA system at every level of government. Kind of described that already, but it's important to state that again, federal, state, and local. So every current government, whether it's federal, state, or local, has a complete system that I have here. So you're going to have a whole lot of systems. Virginia Beach is going to be different from Las Vegas. Las Vegas is going to be different from New York City, from a small town in Wyoming. Everyone's going to have their own unique legal entity, the full system, and within that full system, each of these categories here. So you see how we split government power up significantly. We already have significant representation. We have well over 100,000 representatives when you look at city council, school boards, state delegates, and the like. I hear the term about 500,000. That's a lot of representatives. We go much farther. We go much farther into splitting up representative control. And most of it's going to be at the CRA level, so only governing those people who want to be governed by that representative governing agency. Okay, there's a lot of socialism in our current system of violent crime mitigation. From the police officers, that's basically socialism. The government taxes, and then they provide the goods and services. The police officers and the like. They do the courts, all government owned, controlled, and regulated by the government. Prisons, again, owned, controlled by the government. Now there are some private prisons, but in the very strict sense, they're not very private because they are regulated by the government. Significantly regulated by the government. We're going to go significantly different than what we have in the private prisons we currently have, to a much better private system with a lot more competition, where they can do a lot more than what we currently do. So it's not comparable to the current system of private prisons. They are sectors 1 through 15 of the 30. I'm sorry, 11 through 15 of the 30. So there's 5 sectors here. Here are the 30 sectors again on the screen. They're the ones that are down there. Violent crime, law enforcement. Let's go over the 5 real quick. Violent crime is just a definition of violent crime. Assaults, battery, some robberies. Some robberies will go into the other sectors. Murder, rape, all that stuff. But it has to be violent crime. If you cheat on and break an insurance regulation, that is handled somewhere else. That doesn't need to be in the violent crime. There was no violence in that. If you violate an environmental policy or regulation or law, that doesn't go into this. This is basically harming another person physically or threatening and the like. The boundaries will be done separately by the parent sector board, but that's what I'm going with. Some robberies will be in this, but some robberies will also be in the other sectors. If it can be in the other sectors, I'd rather be in the other sectors because I want this to concentrate on the violent crime. So the people in this, they have 100% focus on violent crime. How to define it, how much there is of it, how do we get rid of it, what's the punishment for it, how is it going through the judicial system, how is it going through the prison system, how can we reduce violent crime. So they have a pinpoint focus on their job especially. Okay, law enforcement, that's the cops, the sheriffs, anybody with law enforcement, anybody holding a gun, going out there and have governmental authority, policing, you know that system. We're going to go significantly into the free enterprise system on that. Everybody's going to have, how they're going to get funded, everybody's mandated. We're mandated to pay taxes now, but then under government control, politician control, politicians and bureaucrats control the budget, paying for, hiring, and all that. So we are mandated to have law enforcement now. We're mandated to buy law enforcement. But we don't have any, the citizen does not have much control other than a little bit of voting. My proposal is that we have a system where every individual every business owner, every landowner, every homeowner, every car owner, everybody within many aspects of what they do has to buy a law enforcement contract. The target is the current amount of funding we currently have, but there's a full system for that. I have a full video on that alone, just on the law enforcement, because it's such a big change. So look at that. I'll go a little bit more into it when I go into other things, other slides here. The law enforcement authorization. Anybody with inherent government power, from the police, the prison guards, prison owners, the DA, police officers, the sheriffs, anybody with inherent government power, basically anybody that falls and regulated under these sectors here, well, maybe not everybody, but the vast majority of people with inherent government power over others will have to be authorized. It's a 70% vote of the authorization. It's a representative body, so it's very important to understand that. The court system, again, private sector, but they have high standards. You cannot own a court, have a court company that does not have high standards. The law enforcement authorization is going to enforce it. We're going to have rating floors within the judicial authority rating system. We're going to have a lot of different avenues to make sure the courts are high quality. Nobody wants to hire, no business wants to hire a court system, a court company that does a bad job. First of all, nobody wants to shop with them, because if something happens, they're going to be going through a terrible court system, and nobody wants that. The store owner does not want that, because they don't want to go through a terrible court system. They want high quality court procedures, guidelines, and controls and everything. So the whole system is set up to mitigate against negative externalities in many different ways. The checks and balances between the 5 sectors are tremendous, and we have a lot of different things, from rating floors to the authorization to people's individual choices of picking which law enforcement, what court system, what prison systems they go with. Let's go down to the prisons and corrections. We're going to go back over this a little bit more because it's such a unique idea, but this video is going to be too long if I sit too long in any one of these areas. The prisons and corrections, all going to be free enterprise. There's so many things we can do with prisons right now. We should probably 60 to 70, maybe 80% of the inmates can be earning their own living right now within the prison. We need to dramatically change how we do prisons. We need to make sure people who are violent go to prison. It's not pleasant for them, but it's not also dangerous for them. So dramatically different thing from being dangerous to them, where they're afraid to get abused in prison, afraid to get hurt in prison, versus this being very unpleasant for them. What I mean by that is they should be doing 72 hours of work, 12 days a week, 6 days a week, 12-hour days minimum of work. They earn their own living. Idle hands makes for trouble. They should be working, learning a new discipline, learning new skills, so when they get out, they can go into the workforce. And also, the prisons and corrections are going to have a long-term rating on how well the inmates that they let go do long-term. So they're going to be motivated to keep up with them, get them a job, put them in a position, and we're going to get rid of a lot of labor laws that could hamper that. If they have to be working for $3 an hour, as they house them in a small unit, after they let them out, at least they have a roof over their head, food in their stomach, a little bit of medical care. They have their necessities of life as they go back into society. So we're going to have a way to have long-term success, low recidivism levels and stuff. So again, I can go down that rabbit hole for an hour easily. Here's the 5 different sectors. Here's a hierarchy of it. You have the violent crime, the law enforcement, the authorization, the court system, and the prisons. So you see the hierarchy here. Maybe you can't see it very easily, and that's understandable. You go to my website, but you have about 12 different CRAs, regulatory agencies on each one. Oh, and the violent crime is the only one that really has represented, well, no. Violent crime and the authorization, they have primary authority at the representative level, the sector board level. They are made up of their people from the CRAs, from representatives of CRAs. And then, but the law enforcement, the court system, and the prison systems, they have primary authority at the CRA level in each individual unit. So every police company, every prison company, every court company has to sign up with a regulatory agency within their sector. And then that regulatory agency regulates them. So I can sign up, let's say I own a police company, my neighbor owns a police company, each one of us picks what CRA to govern them. So it'll be about a dozen different regulatory agencies, and everybody picks theirs. Now, when I do my own personal contract for law enforcement, then I get them to protect me. Now, there'll be naturally there'll be patrols around the neighborhoods, just like they are now. Every police officer will have to protect every person. There'll be mandates. There will be guidelines. There's a lot of things to create the system where everybody's being protected. We don't do the silliness of this one police contractor, this police company's protecting this guy, but not this guy. So somebody's getting assaulted. No, that police officer has to protect everybody. You're not going to have somebody who says, you're not within my contract, you're not within my company, I'm not hired to protect you, so here you are getting attacked, and I'm not going to do anything. No. You have a badge, there's mandates to that, and there's a lot of cooperation. Money can be flown back and forth based off a lot of different things. Rating systems, there's a lot of cooperation that's mandated within the system with the rating floors and the like. So the mandates, I don't like using the word mandates, but rating floor is a mandate, and that rating floor is going to create a system where it's highly likely that's going to be a lot of cooperation and a lot of things there has to be. So let's keep on going because rabbit trails. Okay, there are two main concerns with law enforcement, whether private or public. Those two main concerns, because just because it's private or public does not mean all the concerns go away. Is there proper funding in the public within the current government system? And is there going to be or proper funding within the private sector? Well, the mandates that every individual, homeowner, car owner, business owner, and businesses are their own entity, so they have to have their own contract. Every road business, because all the roads are going to go free enterprise. Every road company is mandated to have a road contract, a police contract for their road. So there's going to be a lot of funding. And if that does not achieve enough funding, the mandate goes up a little bit. Hey, you have to jack up your prices. You have to jack up your services. We're not getting enough police coverage for these areas. You need to jack it up. Simple as that. The rating floors are going to handle that. There's going to be some CRAs. There's still going to be a leadership over the full police system. There's still going to be a police chief, but the police chief can only handle, and that's at the representative level, but they can only control under certain guidelines set up by the representatives. And that's only when it's totally needed. For example, a major flood happens, a natural disaster, a man-made disaster, a riot happens, certain big things that happen where the police chief can say, okay, everybody with a badge, I have control over you for a while until it calms down under the certain guidelines, and you're going to be doing this. You're going to go on this post, you're going to go on that post, you're going to do this and that. Just kind of like the current system, the police chief can call people in and put them where they need to be. They sign contracts. That's a mandate for having a badge. Anyway, another rabbit trail. Okay, and is there proper oversight? Well, there's going to be a lot more oversight under the CRA system than there's going to be. There's not as much CRA. There's not as much oversight. Sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied. There's going to be a lot more oversight under the CRA structure than the current structure. First of all, you're going to have the authorization board. They're going to be running the internal affairs and the like. They're going to be able to look at everything that's going on. They're going to really be able to pull somebody's power. With a 70% vote gain that authority and only a 40% vote to take away authority, you really have a system where that authorization board, representative board, can really have power to take away power and take away somebody's badge, take away somebody's authority. So that's highly important. The rating systems are going to be important. Anybody who's starting to get bad marks, they don't want bad marks, because business owners and homeowners, they're going to take away their contract and move it to another law enforcement company. They're going to lose business. They lose dollars. That's accountability very quickly. So the oversight is going to be handled a lot better. Right now, we don't have people who have a laser focus on that. Our representatives do not have a laser focus. They don't have the experience in the law enforcement area. They don't have the time. They're worried about welfare. They're worried about education. They're worried about tax policy. They're worried about foreign policy. They're worried about road policy. They're worried about every other policy in the world. Do they really have the time to focus directly in? The way I split up the power, people are going to be focused directly on those courts, or directly on those prisons, or directly on those law enforcement, directly on violent crime, the definition. We have other people who are directly on authorizing the police force and make sure nobody goes out of whack, out of their boundaries. So we have a lot better, because these are top level. Within the CRA structure, these representatives and these CRA leaders, they are top level. Nobody's above them. There's always people above everybody, because the American citizens they are always above. With the representative checks and balance systems, they're above them. But there needs to be, so there's oversight. What I'm trying to say is we go to a much better oversight, much better, proper level of funding. When I say proper level, do we need more or less than we currently have now? I don't know what it's going to shake out at. The rating system, the rating floors, they're going to be able to monitor that constantly. Do we have enough or do we not have enough? If we seem like we have way too much, we can pull back some and make the mandate a little bit less. If we have too much, if we don't have enough, they can jack it up a little bit. There's people who are laser focused on that one area and not worried about education policy and military and everything else. There's too much to worry about within government power to give it to one congressman dealing with all the areas that we're talking about. One state delegate dealing with all the areas that we're talking about. These are full-time people working 60, 70 hours a week, laser focused on their one set of responsibilities. And there's a lot of them. Checks and balances against each other. Boy, do I go down rabbit holes. The role of prices will always develop a more proper level of funding. I kind of went over that a little bit, but it's going to be so important when you have different police companies, different prison companies, different court systems. The role of prices is so important, and that's something that we cannot use right now in the current system because it's politician controlled, bureaucrat controlled. Okay, 10 representative bodies. You have the rating system as a representative body. You have the CRA side as a representative body. There's 5 sectors, each one with both CRA and the rating system. So you both have representative bodies. This will give robust regulations and oversight. So each one of those representative bodies has dramatically more focus on their one area than what the congressman or the state senator or the city councilman has. A lot of these state delegates and city council members, they're part-time positions, and they're dealing with everything, all the areas of law. Well, we're laser focused on their set of responsibilities, and these are going to be full-time people versus part-time people. There's something to be said about a lot more focus from top-level decision makers. Okay, violent crime will representatives will define violent crimes. So everybody, myself, my neighbor, guy down the street, guy in another city, everybody picks which violent crime CRA they want to go with. And then they're going to send representatives. Now, how do I decide? I look at the mission statement from all the different violent crimes. I look at their track record. I look at who they have as leadership. I look at what they're proposing and what they are trying to take away. I'm looking at everything, their whole body of work. Then I say, I like what this guy has to say about violent crime. I don't like what this guy has to say. I like what this group has to say. It's been saying it for 10, 15, 20 years. I have a track record. I'm going to go with them. Then they send representatives up to the representative level, and they make rules on what is rape, what is murder, what's second-degree murder, third-degree murder, what's manslaughter, what's all the different categories, what's assault, what's battery, and where the definitions are, and then what the punishment should be. Now, they're going to be working closely with the judicial department and the courts and the judges and the like, making sure the sentences come down the way they're supposed to come down, because they have a vested interest in stopping this. So there's going to be back and forth and interplay between the DAs, the judges, and the violent crime. So who's going to win out? We don't know exactly. There's going to be interplay between them. But this representative body could make some mandates if need be, if we have to start letting murderers go after 1 month. We don't want that, obviously. Now, I don't think that's going to be the case, because the same people asking for representation for the VCs, violent crime, that's the CRA side, the same people, the individuals, the citizens, me, you, everybody else, we're going to be signing up for a CRA in this sector and the court sector. So we don't want, they're not going to be that big of a difference right there. So anyway, let's keep on going. The violent crime rating system will provide quality information. So important that you have two different bodies here. Now, you might not see the need for different bodies here, but because we have a rating system on every side and this VC on every side, it's highly important that we keep that structure. And I think they will have very different. These two bodies might not be, these probably going to be the smallest of the units, the smallest of the sectors when it talks about budgeting, when it talks about money's being spent, time being spent, because they're defining it. That's it. They're not implementing it. They're not doing the courts. They're not doing the prisons. They're not doing the law enforcement. This is going to be a lot less funding through this sector than it is the law enforcement. Let's keep on going. Here's the law enforcement. Law enforcement businesses. So you might have 10 people who's gone through police academy, who has different levels of experience, and you have a 10-person unit and says, I'm going to set up a station over here, and we're going to be a unit protecting this one major subdivision of 100,000 people. No problem, you can do that. And people can be hiring those people. You might have a whole bunch of police businesses within the same police station. That's going to happen. Anyway, I'm going down rabbit hole, so let's keep on going. The law enforcement business, regulated by the law enforcement CRAs, because they're different things. The CRA does not hire people, not police officers directly. They regulate police companies underneath them. So you have a private police company, and they pick to be regulated by the CRA. And you might have 10 different police companies hired or controlled by this one regulatory agency. And then all different 12 different regulatory agencies has 10 or so police companies underneath them. Some with 100 police officers, some with 10 police officers, some with 2 police officers. You could have a police company with 2 police officers, or 1 police officer, a sole proprietor. So let's keep on going. But they all have to be under a CRA. They all have to be within the hierarchy within the police system as a whole under the representative. They are all subject to be told what to do by the police chief when the regulations and guidelines mandate that it is. I'm sorry. Okay. Let's see. Enforced by the CRAs will prevent, deter, and arrest people committing violent crimes. Okay. So law enforcement businesses, they hire real police officers that have been trained, gone through the police academy, and the like, and they arrest people committing violent crimes. So, the law enforcement rating system will rate law enforcement, giving citizens quality information on which law enforcement businesses to hire. Highly important here. We need to know which law enforcement companies are doing the best jobs. The rating system is going to help with that. They're going to collect all the information, be a good spot to have all the information in one spot, and rate each of the law enforcement CRAs and businesses if need be. But CRAs especially. But the CRAs are going to be rated based off of their law enforcement companies underneath them. Tax funds will supplement police and first responders for big events such as natural or man-made disasters and riots. Now, maybe. What I want to see here more than tax funds from sales taxes and real estate taxes, we might be able to build up a national nest egg of those funds for big events. But what I probably want to do more is have every police company set aside, let's say 10% of their income for big events. So when something happens, and when they send money up to the representative level sets money aside for these big events. So when a big event happens, they're not scrambling and they don't have the funds to hire and pay for all these police officers that they're mandating to hire for this riot or this this flood or whatever. When big things happen, we need to have the funds already there. So I want to have more staying within the system, but I'm not totally against having a little bit of real estate tax or whatever, build a nest egg, so when big things happen, there's funds there to deal with the issues. Every person, business, or property owner, every organization, along with almost all entities. So I say entities. It's very important that we understand every entity has to be headed up by a person, a citizen, or you can have a business from overseas controlling a business here. There's no problem with that, and they're an entity as well. But everyone has to hire a police and have a police contract, purchase police protection. So if you own a home, you're going to be owning more, and you're going to have more responsibility. You're going to have to have a higher police contract. If you have a $100,000 house, house worth $100,000, it's going to be a little bit smaller police contract. If you have $1 million house, $2 million house, a little bit larger contract. It might not be totally proportional, but you're going to have a little bit more because you have a little bit more to protect. And we needed enough money for police for the poor. There's no doubt about it that the rich right now supplement the poor for police protection. We're going to do a little bit of that too, but not nearly as much as we do now. But there'll be some of that. We don't want a lot of the poor not to have any police protection whatsoever because they're poor and they can't afford police contracts. Now, what happens when a police contract can't be paid? You're mandated to pay it, but you don't have the money for it. Where you do labor hours in the charity economy. What is that? Go look at that video. People can pay by labor hours versus directly paying them. So if you can't pay your fees, you can do labor in the labor economy. Do labor in the charity economy. You're just gonna have to watch that, otherwise this video is 2 hours. Okay, the Law Enforcement Authorization Sector Board authorizes law enforcement officers and prosecutors, anybody with inherent government power. Prosecutors, prison guards, DAs, even the defense attorneys, they're going to have to kind of say who is and who is not authorized to be a defense attorney. We don't want just some bum off the street coming in and being a defense attorney. A little bit of regulations dealing with that. And every CRA can make their own determination who's going to be a defense attorney, but the whole rating system is going to have to authorize that too. The authorization system is going to have to authorize that. There'll be some rating floors. Okay. The Law Enforcement Authorization Rating System rates every person and LEA authorizes, who they authorize. So the rating system is going to rate every police officer, every prison guard, everybody. If you have a bad rating, people aren't going to want to hire you. If you're roughing people up unnecessarily, nobody's going to want to hire you. We need that information out there. We want to hire, and the police companies we hire to be well regulated. Nobody wants to be regulated by a bum, by a thug, by people who are not respecting civil liberties. Let's go on. The judicial system prosecutes the perpetrator. Okay, we have to understand that this is for violent crimes right now. For all the other sectors, we're going to go through the system as well, but the CRA is going to pay for the CRA where it came from. Insurance regulations, environmental regulations, the education regulations, all those other sectors, they'll go through the system, the court system, yes, but they're going to be paying for it. There'll be a funding mechanism through where they came from, what sector they came from. Everybody's going for the violent crime. This is going to be the judicial system prosecutes the perpetrator. The LEA authorizes judges and prosecutors. The rating system will set a rating floors on fair judicial proceedings. Highly important to know that we're going to be respecting civil liberties. We still have the Fifth Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, 14th Amendment. We have all the amendments we currently have in the U.S. Constitution. All the protections for civil liberties, we keep those. Those get built right into the system, and we need a 70% vote of the representative vote to reduce down that, which is not going to happen very easily. Most people like those. We're not going to do that. We might increase it, civil liberties protections, but we're not going to decrease it. So there's a lot to that. We have a system for everything. The system, this whole thing is made to create ways to change, but to hold back that change when it's going to harm somebody's original authority, their civil liberties, their original authority over themselves. Okay. The rating system will set a rating floor. So it's so important to know that the CRAs, they want to have high ratings just because they want to attract businesses and individuals to have contracts with them through the businesses underneath them. But they also knows that if something goes wrong and ratings go down too low, they can't go below a rating floor or they're out of business. Their authorization gets stripped. Okay. The Law Enforcement Authorization Sector Board will employ highly vetted, qualified, experienced, honest inspectors that will have 100% unhampered access to 100% of the police and prosecutor files, judges' files. There are going to be some people that are at the very top level, highest level of integrity, that will be able to look at everything. Nothing is excluded. It's important to know that everybody has a boss. You can't have somebody hiding abuse or corruption. We're going to have people that can look at anything that they need to look at to stop that corruption. Prisons and probation correction businesses bid on convicted people using state and local tax funds. Now, I'm changing that a little bit probably. We can use state and local tax funds, or we can use contracts for courts. We can have fees for individuals signing up to a CRA, and then that money flows down. There's a lot of ways to do the funding. And I know a couple slides, even on my website, I have a couple different ways of doing it. There's inconsistencies, yes. There's a couple ways of doing it, and I'm not the final say. We could use a sales tax, a real estate tax, a small income tax, payroll tax, or whatever. For some of this, it's be very minor because this whole system is pretty minor on cost, and we can make it a lot less minor. I mean, lot less expensive. I happen to think that we could probably get away with having a net zero on prison costs because we work all the prisoners 72 hours. If they're in prison, they did something wrong. Work them 72 hours. They're not slaves. They're prisoners. but they did something wrong. We should keep their hands busy, keep their minds busy, get them working, doing something. Also, in the prison business, I personally think that we should have little prison cities. With like a Big Brother city with cameras everywhere, everybody's GPSed, everybody's now these are all only people who go. The people who go in there are only people who are convicted. But instead of going in small cells, we let people have a little bit more liberty, but let them know that there's cameras all over the place. They're GPS. Anybody get in trouble there, we'll easily be able to find out who did it quickly and address the situation. And they don't want to be convicted of a violent crime within this system. So we're not just throwing everybody in there. We're not talking about Big Brother cities for people who are not convicted. We're talking about people who would otherwise be in prison. We'll go to these prison cities. Big old open area of maybe a square mile, 2 square miles. A lot of little huts where people sleep in. Not very pleasurable. Not very big. But warm. Safe. Cameras all over the place. Places for them to go. Factories to go to. Farms to grow food. Buses going in and out all the time. Bringing people to work in different factories, different farms, different places. There's a lot that can be done. Get people ready to go back into society by working, getting skills, and letting them have the liberty of doing what they want to do without harming others. But if they do, Big Brother's there seeing it, and you don't want to because there's a lot more punishments going to come from doing harm within that city. Boy, did I go down the rabbit trail on that one. Okay, the prison rating system authorizes prisons. Nope, I changed that. The law enforcement authorization authorizes everybody. So this is a bad slide here. I changed the slide up. Okay, let me just go past that slide real quick. Forget you saw that one. It's a law enforcement authorization authorizing everybody. There are going to be experts at authorization. We don't need to change it. First, I had a rating systems doing some of it. I went away from that. I didn't change that slide. Okay. State government tax funds will supplement where necessary. However, fines and working inmates will expand to cover the cost. So I went over the cost a little bit. We have the funding coming from we can have it from many different areas, and the system will create and decide that. I'm not opposed to a little bit of taxes, but I'd rather have it come through funds from contracts, from individuals, businesses, and the like. And most of the funding is going to come from people doing work. Buses coming in, getting a whole bunch of laborers, going out there to the fields, going out to wherever, to the factories, and working these people. And they don't get the income, by the way. They don't earn that living. They work. There might be some benefits for them to do a good job. That can happen. But their biggest benefit is gaining a work skill and being productive and not letting their hands be idle. So they're getting educated, apprenticeship type of things. There's a lot of things that you can do. So we're going to reduce down the cost of prisons dramatically. And the prison ratings, let's go back to here real quick before I go on. The prison rating system is going to stop abuses. They're going to be rating guards. They're going to be rating processes. They're going to be rating systems. They're going to be rating full prisons. They're going to be rating everything. And if inmates are being abused and not protected, they're unsafe, there's a lot of things, the rating system is going to rate them low. They're going to get funded less. There's a lot of funding mechanisms. I even came up with another funding mechanism dealing with a lot of different things. That's on another slide that I don't even have in this slide. We can try. So different CRAs can try it. Different states can try different things. Different cities can try different things. So yes, I do have a couple ideas out there. But the full funding thing is still up in the air within my system. But it's not up in the air of who decides. The representatives of the prison system decide. We want funding coming through contracts. We want funding coming through state taxes, whether it be real estate taxes, whether it be sales taxes, whether it be income taxes, payroll taxes. or the like. Maybe even a head tax, business tax, there's a lot of different taxes you could use. A lot of different ways to get funded. The system, my system says the rating system is going to decide that. And the prison CRA system will decide it. The rating system can put a floor on it saying you need to increase it or decrease it. Okay, I did a whole bunch of 3-minute introduction series into a lot of these areas, so I still don't want to miss any points. I'm going to quickly go through this, make sure I didn't forget any points. There's your 5 sectors again. The violent crime mitigation, they define the crime, they define the punishments. All the other sectors set their other laws. Again, education or insurance or financial, those sectors set their own laws. They have their own, they use the same court system, yes, but they set their own laws and the punishments for those laws. Okay, CRA members investigate full-time. It's so important. Everybody in this system is going to be full-time. It's the top leadership. They're going to be laser focused on their sector alone. I said it before, but it's so important to say it again. Every representative is going to have a very narrow focus. They're not going to be focused on the foreign diplomats. They're not going to be focused on whether to go to war. They're not going to be focused on the environmental policy. They're not going to be focused on, again, insurance policy or financial policy or healthcare policy, tax policy, welfare policy. These people are laser focused on getting the best court system and letting people decide who they like better. There'll be a competition to be the best, and people will move to a better system if their CRA does not keep up. Their prison, CRA, prison companies, court companies, police companies do not keep up. Oh, another thing. There's a lot of people in the inner city right now that don't like the police. In my system, they get to choose and fund the police company that they want to guard them, to police them. They're not going to hire the people they don't like. There might be some police that they don't like. They can set up a police company of police officers that they do like. Now, keep in mind, their neighbor right down the street gets to hire the police company they want to protect them. So everybody has a police company that they hire. And through representation and funding, yes, you do have to have police officers patrol the area, protecting everybody. But when you get to hire the police officers that you want, the police company that you want, that you like, there's not going to be so much animosity. When you say this guy's a thug and he's coming in here and, let's say, being racist or doing something, well, hire somebody else. Change your membership. Change your contract from this police company to another police company where they are maybe they're not racist, or maybe they're not being a thug. Maybe they're doing more neighborhood policing. So important to understand that one concept where if you don't like who you have, you're able to change it like that. Just like you're allowed to change from one grocery store to another. If somebody is giving you rotten food, out-of-date food, food that you don't like, expensive food, all the groceries are expensive, switch to a different grocery store. Same thing with police companies. If you don't like who you're dealing with, who's policing you, change it. Now, obviously you have other people who get to pick theirs. And then there'll be police officer patrolling. But after the fact, who's the police company that you hired is going to do the investigation from a crime. So you do have patrols, but then you also have your company doing the investigation. Okay, let's keep on going. Members investigate full-time, mandatory funding for courts and prisons for these crimes. So it's just, I already went over all those. Requirements for the badge, you have to be trained to be a police officer. They're not going to give you a badge if you're not trained. That's going to be simple. You have to be monitored. You have to have internal affairs. You have to have ongoing training. You have to have ongoing oversight. You have to have a good rating because the rating system is going to rate every single person. If you fall below a rating floor, you're out. You're no longer have your badge. You cannot be a police officer. The police company that you were hired with, they have to let you go or downgrade you to a different level, because we have different levels of police officers with authority. You have the master detective, the FBI agent type of guy who has the most training, down to the lowest level mall cop. Obviously, a mall cop does not have much training, so you just have a major difference on how much authority, because it depends on how much authority a cop has, depends on how much training, how much experience, what their rating is, and the whole 9 yards. So you go from a street cop to be a street cop, you have to have a certain level, period. It's so much more than a mall cop. But then a street cop needs a lot more training and experience to jump up to a detective than a master detective and whatever else, whatever other levels they want to go with. Okay, top cop, a sheriff, or a police chief, when guidelines say that they get to have control and a natural disaster happens, a riot happens, something big happens, when he declares that happens, and you're not going to be able to declare it when it doesn't happen. There'll be systems set up for the representatives to say, no, you don't have that authority, you can't do that. But when it happens and the representative says, yep, it happened, then the police chief gets to order anybody with a badge, and they're mandated, they know when they get a badge. If this happens, if these guidelines are met, and a riot happens, you are controlled by the police chief. You don't have, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. You can't get out of it. Within the guidelines, you have to do what that police chief says. Obviously, within guidelines. Okay, and funding. We talked a lot about funding. Obviously, there's a lot of different ways to do it, and I already had a little bit of discrepancies, because what I was trying to do is examples of how it could be funded. There's a couple different ways. But for the law enforcement contracts are the major. The courts and the prisons can be a little bit different. Law enforcement authorization sector, make sure I hit all these things. Anybody with inherent power. You have the different people that that has inherent power. The prisons, the police, the judges, the cops, and the like. They issue badges. Oh, they also have it with the 40% vote, representative vote. So not even a majority. 40% can pull that power. And when your badge gets pulled, your badge gets pulled. There's no, you can go to court to try to get your badge back. That's another factor. But when it's pulled, you have to give it up. You can't just say, I have it. There's people within the whole system is going to enforce that. Anybody with the badge that's in good standing is going to be able to go arrest anybody who doesn't give up their badge. Anybody who wants to go back on the street and act like a police officer, no. You cannot have a badge without the authorization. You cannot go onto the street showing a badge, showing that you have authorization when you don't have it. It's a major crime, and there's major punishments for acting like a police officer when you don't when you're not a police officer. And being a police officer means you have the badge. And every badge is going to have their level of authorization. Let's say 1 through 100, you have authorized. Let's say a street cop starts at 50, mall cop is at 10, a citizens. Let's say a citizen's at a 10 or 20, mall cop's at a 30. You go up a little bit with a little bit of training to be a little bit more an assistant cop or whatever at 40, a cop at 50, a assistant detective at 60, a detective at 70, master detective at 80, and we don't like to go above 80 anyway because there's always room for improvement for a master cop or master detective. Okay. Just a rabbit trail there. Okay, let's see. Command law enforcement. Okay, the command law enforcement means the law enforcement authorization can command anybody with a badge to take away somebody else's badge if they don't want to give it up. So that's not going to be an issue. There's not usually an issue in America about somebody pulling a badge, then they're trying to go on the streets. Same way, we still have all that within the system. So then it's societal oversight. The authorization agencies are societal oversight. So it allows the law enforcement to be private, the courts to be private, the prisons to be private. Now, the prisons cannot put anybody in prison that the judicial system does not put in prison, that a judge did not put in prison. That's silly. We own it. It is a lot of regulations there, a lot of mandates. You can't just have a private prison companies pull somebody off the street because they don't like them, put them in prison. No, to be in prison, you have to be convicted by a judge, sign off. There's a lot to it. We're not being silly by just saying private and they get to do whatever they want to. Private does not mean you get to do whatever you want to. You cannot take somebody else's rights away. We have a system for that. Okay. Judicial authorities, let's see, for the courts, funded by fees from this sector. So there'll be fees from all the different sectors, from all the CRAs. When you pay those fees, some of that's going to go to courts. Pay the fees for violent crime, that'd be individuals, and there'll be a funding mechanism, put it that way. And if there's not enough, the rating floor goes up, and there's a lot of ways to get funding. We talked about that. CRAs must contract with the court. A court must contract with CRAs. Oh, we're talking CRAs from other sectors has to contract with courts as well. So environmental regulations, they have to contract with courts as well. So when there's a discrepancy on insurance regulations, who's right, who's wrong, they have to go through a court. So they're going through courts. They have their own court type of system. Everything is rated, high civil rights ratings floors, so that's a mandate. You have to have a 70% vote to lower that civil rights level. It's kind of like our Constitution. You have to have a very high level of votes, two-thirds of the states to lower civil rights protections. We have the freedom of press, freedom of speech, freedom, the Second Amendment and the like. To get rid of that, you have to go through two-thirds of the states. So no, it's not very easily. I'm going with 70% of the people. So it's very, very much not easy to lower down that. Make it harder to lower that down. Competition and cost savings measures. Oh, I really didn't get to this. We're talking free enterprise here. Free enterprise always reduces down the cost. Reduces down the trouble. The DMV is regulated by the government. It's controlled by the government. It's owned by the government. And you have long lines out the door. People don't like to go there. You go there and you sit down for 2 hours. Not very convenient. You put the DMV in the free enterprise system, and there'll be little DMVs popping up all over the city, in malls and in little strip malls, and online. There'll be places all over the place who will have high standards, make sure they're doing everything correctly. They'll be monitored, make sure that everything's being done correctly. They might charge a higher fee, they might charge a lower fee, don't know. But the free enterprise system will solve the problem of people not waiting 2 or 3 hours. Within the courts, there's going to be systems where people are going to be different courts are going to be competing, so people don't go to court and waste all day long. They're going to be able to have lawyers Skyped in, computer video image in to the court to protect your interest at a much lower cost than have a lawyer actually stand beside you, where he has to spend 2 or 3 hours of his day, many hundreds of dollars, even thousands of dollars probably, to represent you, where you only need him for 15 minutes to protect your interest as you go to court. A lot less cost on that. A lot to get into. That's a whole other video and a big rabbit trail. But the notion of a free enterprise system dealing with all these issues is going to make a better system. Free enterprise always works better than socialism. The better gets better, the good gets better, and the poor fall away. The poor standards always fall away because somebody's going to do it better. then individuals, homeowners, business owners, they're going to pick the ones that are doing it better, that have a better system, that's more convenient, that's less expensive, higher quality goods, higher quality services. And what we're talking about is high quality services. So socialism doesn't work as well. They're going to have to really cater, because they're in competition with other police businesses, they're in competition with other court businesses, they're in competition with other prison businesses. They're going to have to cater to the consumer, to the individuals, to the business owners, to get their business. So they have to provide really good services. And that's what these are: government services, police services, court services, prison services. They have to cater to us, the U.S. citizen, the citizen of Chesapeake, Virginia, the citizen of Virginia, the citizen of Idaho, the citizen of Las Vegas, Nevada. They have to provide services better than the next guy. Because that next guy, without having to move jurisdictions, without having to change where they live. Right now, I can change my jurisdiction from one to another city by moving to a neighboring city or neighboring state. I can move to North Carolina or to Nevada, to California or to Alaska. I can change my jurisdiction and change who regulates me. This whole thing is about having 12 different ones without having 12 different regulatory agencies in each category without having to move. Big change. Okay, free enterprise prisons and courts. Let's make sure I hit all these areas. So they're all private prisons. There's a funding mechanism. Again, I'm not going to go into all of my discrepancies because I'm showing examples of how we can get it, not necessarily which way it's going to be. The representative body over top of this system will set up the funding mechanism. But they're going to have the authority to make sure to authorize funding through taxes or through contracts or the many different ways. And they're going to be able to get money through working the prisoners. That's highly important to know. And there'll be a lot of controls over that as well. But there's rating systems and the like. So, I talked about the big brother towns, big brother cities where you just have a big perimeter, maybe some guards in the middle, yes, police officers in the middle, but everybody's going to be behaving themselves for the simple reason you act up in this one, you go to a much less desirable prison. This one is going to allow a lot of freedom and liberty. Not all of it. When the police officer tells you where to go, you pretty much have to go there. When the prison guards in that big town tells you where to do, you do it. If you're not working good, and you're not working productively, you're not working diligently, you're not using your head, you're slouching off, your food, your entertainment for the 72 hours you're not working are going to be, well, maybe it's 84, 96 hours, you're not working, your day is not going to be so enjoyable. You work productively, you might get better entertainment. You work productively, you might get better food. You work productively, you might get this or that you desire. Anyway, rabbit holes. High civil rights, competition. Okay. Prison system. This is one I didn't get to. I really wanted to get to this. Every prison system is going to be rated off of a lot of different categories. Here's some of the categories. Low recidivism rate. Are we restoring some of the stuff that we did during the damage? Did we abuse somebody? Did we assault somebody? Did we rob somebody? Some of that money that we make during our time in prison will go to restoring and compensation for what we did wrong to somebody. We shoplift, the money goes back to that store where you shoplift. You assaulted somebody, the money goes to that person, compensation. Reparation. When you did something wrong, the prison system is not so much designated as low recidivism rates. They're not dedicated to restoration. They're not dedicated to compensation. They're not dedicated to reparations right now. The current system is not. The new systems are going to focus on these 4 things right here. Low recidivism rate is going to be big, which means that prison system is going to look at them long term, even after they're under their big thumb of within the prison. We're talking about parole right now, long term. We get rid of labor law, we get rid of a lot of other stuff, and we allow these people to control these ex-inmates if they need to be controlled, or provide for food, shelter, the basic necessities of life, so they don't go back to the life of crime, go back to a life of drugs, go back to the life of whatever. A little bit more control, but the inmate chooses it if they wants to choose that, and they have options. They have competition for that. So you see how this can be a lot better than the current system. Personal long-term prospering of the convicted. Now, most people only want to punish them, but we also have to look at the personal long-term prospering of the person who was a perpetrator. Well, we can dismiss them. Too many people would dismiss them and just wants to punish them, shun them. All those things are fine too, but what it does is it puts that person back into the life of crime. It does not allow that person to come back into society. It does not allow that person to come back in and prosper. And they stay in the life of crime, and they have a miserable life, but they also abuse others. And we don't want them to abuse others. So this is also an important factor, long-term prospering of the convicted. Reparations given to the victims, highly important. We need to focus more on that. Education and work skills, apprenticeships. That's why we're working these people 72 hours a week, to give these people education, apprenticeship, work skills. So important. My second to last slide I always do. The freedom of about a dozen CRAs, this is per sector, dozen CRAs, in about a dozen full systems, all the different sectors, full systems, to experiment will yield great results. That's free enterprise. People having choices. More than one organization, more than one business, more than one entity, seeking to make people's lives better, seeking to make a better system, and individuals getting to choose which system to go into. Highly important. It will yield great results, better than monopoly. Better than monopoly is, in this aspect, socialism. Because government is, well, you can't say that police, there's no definition of socialism that does not incorporate the prisons, the courts, and the police officers right now. It just, there's no definition. It is socialism. Free enterprise can work better. Yes, we need controls. Yes, we need a system. But we use a roll of prices. The roll of prices is so important. Okay, everything is easy to find on my website. Please consider a donation. I need a lot of donations just to keep these videos going, promote the videos, get somebody in here to help me with some social media, get somebody in here to help me with some writing and proofreading, a lot of things I need help with. So, until the next video.